Welcome to the Checked Out Podcast, the official podcast of the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library. I'm your host, Jessica Renato, and I'm here today with young adult fantasy author Intisar Khanani, this year's writer-in-residence here at CHPL. So Intisar, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So as part of our writer-in-residence, we want to know a little bit more about you and your crafts. So can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live here in Cincinnati. I kind of grew up all over the place. I was born in Wisconsin. I spent a bunch of my youth moving around. I lived in Saudi Arabia, lived in Colorado. I went to boarding school in New Hampshire. I went to a couple different states for college. And I finally moved to Cincinnati when I was getting married. My husband works at Xavier University. And I was doing my master's online, so I was much more flexible with where I needed to be. So I moved to Cincinnati and it stuck. I love the city. It's a really fun place to be. It's very family friendly and there's always something neat going on. And it has an amazing library system.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, talk about not only diverse culture, but diverse weather and ecosystems. Wow, that's so neat. Well, you're an author, so can you talk to us a little bit about how you got into writing?
Yeah, I'm one of those folks who has always been writing. So I think my first book was when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and I stapled it together, and it was honestly hilariously absurd. It was about a little fish who wanted to go to school. No pun intended. And my mom kept it for me. It's still, you know, in crayon. But I've been telling stories to myself my whole life. And it was really more a question for me of when did I want to start sharing those stories. So I took a few classes on writing in college, but I was really trying to be very practical. So I studied like business and computer science and boring stuff like that, which, I mean, some people love it and that's amazing, but it was not actually my cup of tea, but I knew it would help me get a job, and I was very, very pragmatic going through school, but my heart was always with writing, and so, you know, my senior year of university, I was working on my business degree, and I wrote my first novel, just because I was like, well, I've always said I want to be a writer, I guess I should just go ahead and write a novel. And it was a really good challenge for me. And it took me maybe 10 years from drafting that novel to revising it multiple times, writing other novels, and then getting to the point of actually wanting to publish.
That's amazing. So, yeah, I feel like writing in general comes with so much imposter syndrome and this feeling. I'll never forget personally, as someone who enjoys writing myself, thinking sometimes some people just wake up and say, I'm going to write a book. Why can't I do that? You know, why can't we do that? So what does your typical writing process look like? Do you get up one day and say, I'm going to write a book, or is there a lot of planning? Tell me what goes into your process.
Yeah, so I mean, I do sometimes wake up and I go, oh, I have a story idea. But there is a very significant component of dreaming for me. Usually daydreaming, that before I get to a point of actually feeling like I have a story. So I'll have a nugget of an idea, and I've learned to actually be like, this is writing time, and I'll snuggle up in my bed with the cover over my head and think about that idea and play with it, and kind of, especially like for me, it's that liminal time after I wake up before I get ready for the day, where I'm still kind of in this dreamy space. That's the critical time period to just kind of snuggle up and dream my story. And that's how they usually develop at first. I am not a strong plotter. Like I even when I get to the point of I'm ready to put this on paper, I know what a 3-act structure is. I write 3-act structures. I do not plan 3-act structures.
So you're what we would call a pantser? Are you a pantser? Do you think that's somebody who writes by the seat of your pants, or are you something in between?
See, I think the term pantser implies that you don't have a plan and you're not using tools and methods to what you're doing. And I am. They just don't look like plotting tools.
Sure.
And so I tend to prefer the term intuitive writer.
I like it.
Because I really am relying on my intuition, my subconscious as I'm writing, but I'm definitely working at it, planning, thinking about how things work. I have a journal for each book, and by the time I'm done drafting, that journal is usually full just of thinking out loud about what's happening in the story, where it's going, if I'm going in the right direction, if I want to shift, what would that look like? But usually, in order to start writing, what I need to know about my story is what my climax is. I don't need to know how I get there. I just need to know what it is, roughly what my resolution is going to look like, and 1 or 2 goalposts along the way of events that happen on the way to the climax. And that's really it. And as long as I have dreamt and played long enough that I know who my characters are and I know this world, I can start writing it, and it'll develop as I go. So a lot of times I'll think I know what my story's about, and I'll write my first draft, and I'll journal my way through looking just a couple chapters ahead as I go, so that I'm always kind of aiming in the right direction for those goalposts. And I'll finish my story, and then I'll send it off to my beta readers, and I'll be like, so what is this book about? And a lot of times it's got a much deeper or different theme than I thought it had. Because again, I'm letting my intuition play out as I write, and my subconscious is a lot smarter than me, which is a little humbling.
I love it,
but very real.
I love that you allow space, and I think it's really interesting that like both kind of your process for writing and when you write mirror each other in a way. Like I feel like so many people either are like morning or evening writers, or they're plotters or pantsers, and you have kind of found this really cool in between space for both, which I think is so cool. So you have several books out now. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about Dauntless Path and the Sunbolt Chronicles?
Sure. So Dauntless Path was my first series, and it started with the book Thorn, which was a fairy tale retelling of the Grimm's fairy tale The Goose Girl. And it's kind of it's a weird story, and at the time, this was a story that I wrote my senior year of university. And it was really, when I started out, it was an exercise to see if I could write a book. It was that getting up and being like, I've always said I wanted to write a novel. How come I can't? Well, I guess let me take a story I know that is a little quirky and weird and has a lot of space for me to play with it. And I'll write it, because how hard can it be to write a book when you already have the plot? And, I like to look back and say the secret to my success has been naivety, because I had no idea how hard it could be. And I just set off with a little bit of hope in my pocket. And I wrote Thorn, and it took, it went through maybe 12 to 16 rounds of revision before I indie published it in 2012, and then Harper Teen picked it up, and it came out again in 2020. Which was a lovely year.
Oh, yeah.
It came out at the end of March 2020. So if you remember that week when we were all panic buying toilet paper,
hey, at least you had something joyful to celebrate during that weird time. And I feel like a lot of people were reading, though, during that time, because we were all at home. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So the Dauntless Path, it's kind of an unusual series. The first book follows, this princess heroine on this fairy tale story. And then the second and third book take up a new heroine. And she crosses paths with our original heroine. Ray is a country girl, and she, her best friend's little sister goes missing, and she realizes it's a wider issue, and she ends up at the capital city working for our princess from the previous book, and she uncovers a kingdom-wide human trafficking conspiracy. So it has some deeper themes, deeper issues around human trafficking, as well as what do you do when the systems are protecting the wrong people and justice cannot be had for those who need it. And justice kind of runs throughout the Dauntless Path books. Thorn, the first book, investigates a lot of questions around violence against women, and it does have a story about surviving abuse in it, and it asks the same questions of like, what do you do when justice is protecting the wrong people? What do you do when justice without mercy is just another form of cruelty? How do you bring mercy to justice, and what is that role? So definitely dealing with they're stories for young adults, they're adventures. There's, young women beating the odds, but also dealing with some really deep real world issues.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, especially for young adult readers to maybe, I feel like stories like this open them up to these ideas where you may hear about it in the news and it is some distant thing, but to be able to like read a story and internalize it is so important.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the Sunbolt Chronicles?
Yeah, the Sunbolt Chronicles is a slightly different flavor. It's Hitomi is my main character, and I like to call her my disaster child. She is so much fun. She's a scrappy heroine, and she's just kind of she's really compassionate and really clever and really, really bad at planning. So she makes a great heroine for an epic kind of story. In the Sunbolt Chronicles, the first book, she volunteers to help a noble family escape execution, accidentally gets caught by the dark mage who killed her father, and it's kind of frying pan into the fire from there. It's a very kind of seat of your pants, fast-paced adventure. It goes different directions than you might expect. And I really wrote it for myself. I wanted a story that took a whole bunch of tropes that we see a lot in YA and that I have enjoyed, and I wanted to just take them and start turning them on their heads and having fun with them. So, Hitomi is a street thief orphan with a magical secret, because of course she is. But then what does each of those things actually mean, and how does that play out? She meets an immortal vampire and with purple eyes, but is he really a good love interest? Because I don't know, old guys and teenagers, maybe that's not a good combination. Maybe
I don't know, the publishing industry might tell you different.
Maybe he's just a really good protective uncle. So I play with a lot of things in the Sunbolt Chronicles.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about your series. We are going to take a quick break and hear about some things happening at the library, and we will be right back.
Visit your favorite arts, cultural, and recreational attractions in Hamilton County for free with a Discovery Pass. With your library card, you can reserve a Discovery Pass for 15 local attractions, including the Cincinnati Museum Center and American Sign Museum. Learn more at chpl.org.
Did you know the library offers free printing? Print up to $5 of documents every day for free. That's 20 color pages or 33 black and white pages. Additional pages are only 15 cents a page for black and white or 25 cents a page for color. Learn more at chpl.org.
Welcome back to the Checked Out Podcast. I'm here today with our writer-in-residence, Intisar, and we have been talking about the writing process and some of her books that she has written. And now we're ready to talk about your time as the library's writer-in-residence, which is really exciting. So can you talk to us a little bit about what drew you to apply for the writer-in-residence position?
Oh, absolutely. So this was actually my third time applying.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of a combination of things. The very first time I applied was its inaugural year, and I was like a baby author. I think I had 2 books out, and I'd only independently published. And I was like, well, you don't know if you don't put your hat in the ring. And I'm glad I applied. And it was a good process, but it was definitely not in the right place to actually bring a lot with me to offer. And then I applied a couple years before the pandemic, and that was, having had I had young children at the time, and I was like, oh, this is a good year. Maybe this would be a good year. And I had my traditional publishing books coming out, but they weren't out yet. And so then last year when I saw the announcement go up, and I chatted with my friends, and I was like, this would be so cool to do, and it's another good year. And when I say good year, it's taking into account what does the rest of my life look like? What are my caregiving requirements? What's happening? What's going on? I had thought about it 2 or 3 years ago, and there was just a lot that my family needed support with at that time. And I went, I don't have this space to give everything I would like to. So this year was like, oh, this is a good year. Everything is like, my family's doing well. I have this space. I feel like I have so much to offer now. I've done independent publishing. I've done traditional publishing. I had my traditional publisher drop my final book, and I brought it out, with hybrid publishing with my British publisher and independently in North America. Like, I've done so many different things, and I really want to both connect with the local community and give back. Like, I love mentoring. I love teaching. I love, connecting with other writers. And so it just seemed like a really good place that I was in to be able to offer, to apply and see if I could be of service.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note why it requires kind of a good time in your life. There are a lot of things that you do as the writer in residence. There's the Inside the Writer's Head podcast.
Yes, that has been so much fun.
Tell us, listeners, a little bit about that podcast. It is separate from this one, though it's still produced or shared by the library. So tell us about it.
So Inside the Writer's Head is it's been hosted by all of the previous writer in residences. So you can go back through and hear Mary Kay Carson and all the previous, Manuel Iris and, all of their podcasts. And it's really up to each writer in residence what they do with the podcast. A lot of us host other writers and authors, and we chat about books and craft and the writing process and what's happening in the industry. Sometimes we'll host local organizations and talk about what they do. So I've just had 2 podcasts so far. It's been so fun. I've never gotten to host one before, and it's really a neat experience. And I've just had a local author whom I love dearly, Beverly Twomey. She writes middle grade fantasy, and then an upcoming debut author, Loretta Shefshaoni, writing a young adult fantasy that's inspired by a Moroccan fairy tale. So just being able to connect with them and talk about craft and share their journeys and learn from them has been really special.
That's so fun. And then part of your role is that you also hold office hours.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what those are and how they're used for library customers.
So office hours are really pretty open. It's a time where I will come, and I don't have a formal office. What I do is I get to go to different branches, and we've tried to spread out my visits across the city. And I show up, I'm there as a resource, and anyone who's interested can come in and chat with me, whether it's about book recommendations or writing tips or the publishing industry today, or whatever it is that they're interested in discussing with me.
And then you also host, on top of all that,
yes,
events and workshops, including one coming up here on May 13th at the Groesbeck branch, the Writer in Residence Workshop, Understanding and Overcoming Writer's Block. And
Yes.
what can visitors to that expect?
For this particular workshop, usually what I do with all my workshops is I have a presentation where I'll share some information. So we'll talk about how to understand writer's block. Where does it come from? What are the spheres of our lives that it can come out of? So it's not all necessarily writing related. It may be your general mental health, your morale, what other demands are on your life. So we'll talk about that. And then I'm hoping to have kind of an open time where we just go around in discussion and talk about, where we are, if we're dealing with writer's block, what's going on, and offer attendees a chance to just kind of dig in a little bit around figuring out how to move forward. And then I'll provide resources and suggestions on how to keep digging in. With writer's block, a lot of times, most of the time, it's a very personal reason, and so the only person who can solve it is you, which writers don't like to hear. Nobody does. We all hate therapy because we go into therapy and the therapist is like, "So what are you going to do about it?" And you're like, "Yeah, you're right. It is a me problem." But sometimes you need that therapist. You need that outside perspective or that support to help you figure out how to approach it. And so I am definitely not a therapist, but I am hoping I offer the tools and the resources for writers to kind of dig into what could be blocking them and how to get through that.
I love that. So all of these things are part of the library, obviously. Tell us why you love the library.
Oh my goodness. So many reasons.
Where do we begin?
Oh, I actually grew up a library kid. I got all of my books from the library. It was my happy place. I would go there and just stay as long as I could. When I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money when I was young, and so we would get books on our birthdays. My mom would take us to the bookstore and we could pick any book we wanted to, which in retrospect I'm sure she regretted, because I would buy like the leather bound, complete works of someone or the other with gold edges. Right? I do still have the complete works of Jack London and Shakespeare. But kudos to my mom. Like she always, whatever it was, she was like, if that's what you like, we're gonna get it.
I love that.
But everything else came from the library, and it was just such a special place. The librarians have always, throughout my life, but especially here in Cincinnati, but everywhere, are they there for you? They're there to answer your questions, they're to help you figure out what you need to figure out. They help you find the resources to move forward. And the Cincinnati Library has so many resources. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, I didn't grow up with Makerspace, and recording booth, and
so neat.
Just so many cool things. All the voter information, the fact that there's free printing every day. Oh my gosh, so helpful.
The library is an amazing place.
It is. So I could go on all day. But I love the library is just, it's part of my life. It always has been. So being able to be a writer in residence at a library is like a life goal. It's just
what a
so
natural
special.
fit.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we are going to take one more quick break and then we will be right back.
Do you need a private space for studying or a meeting? Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library offers free meeting and study rooms for reservation. Available at most library locations. Learn more at chpl.org.
To expand access to STEM-related learning tools and materials, the library has partnered with the Library Foundation and Dean Regas to circulate 15 telescopes for use by library cardholders. Telescopes are available at 15 locations, and each can be checked out for a 7-day loan period. Learn more at chpl.org.
Welcome back to the Checked Out podcast. I'm here with our writer in residence, Intisar, and we have been talking all things writing and writer in residence program and workshops and ways to improve your writing or learn more about writing. And now we're going to get to the segment where we're going to talk a little bit about what you're reading, watching, listening to. But first, I wanted to ask you, is there any other work that you've done that you're particularly proud of?
Ooh, that is a good question. So I'm really proud of the Theft to Sunlight duology that I mentioned before with Ray. And part of that is because it was my first time writing a character with a disability. She has mobility impairment. And it was, I myself don't have a disability. And so it was a really both humbling and wonderful experience to learn to write that, to work with sensitivity readers, to really strive to offer positive representation of something that I myself don't have experience with. And I'm really proud of the romance in this story, because I know what's really funny is I have always enjoyed writing romance, but I'd never tried to really write a traditional romance, and it was really hard. I have so much respect for romance writers.
It definitely comes with its own challenges.
It does. Just learning how to develop a relationship in a way that when you get to the end, you actually achieve a happily ever after. And I know in the first draft, I got to the final chapter, and I was like, of the second book in the duology, where the romance really comes into play, and A Darkness at the Door. And it's a subplot. It's not the focus of the story, but it is part of how we're happy at the end. and I could not write that final chapter. Like I was like, I know what needs to happen, but it genuinely is not right. And learning to figure out, well, what went wrong upstream and how to fix this relationship so that it can be written at the end.
So maybe you are a counselor a little bit for your own characters.
I think I just had too much angst.
Especially in YA, I feel like that's probably real. So talk to us a little bit about what you're reading or watching or listening to right now.
A lot of fun stuff. I just finished an advanced review copy of All a Queen's Curses, which is a fairy tale retelling of a story that we don't hear very much of. It's called Kate Crackernuts. And I know, it's like, I see your page, you're like, what? It's a little bit like a gender-swapped 12 Dancing Princesses, except there's only one prince. He's cursed to dance. And our heroine herself has been cursed separately with relation to her stepsister. So she and her stepsister are fleeing a bad situation. They've been cursed. And as they're trying to save themselves, our heroine also ends up saving our dancing prince. So it's really fun. There's a lot of different plot lines that come into play, and I really love stories that have a little more complexity to them. And then the story is also got a disabled main character, written by a disabled author, and just a really a beautiful kind of meditation on what it is to live life with disabilities. But also, just the twists, the turns, there's this found family and, forging, finding solidarity and healing wrongs, and also like, the satisfaction of poetic justice, right?
Yeah. Is it young adult as well?
Yes, it is. It comes out this August, so highly recommend. And then I also read Slayers of Old, which is a completely different feel. It's an adult fantasy, and the premise is you have these three retired champions. There's a half succubus. There's a old slayer who has to face up to the some trauma from her past, and then there's their best friend and landlord, who's a 99-year-old wizard who loses his dentures and his his rift dimension and his hat. And, they get called on to essentially save the world one more time, and they're like, seriously, we're retired. We really just want to run our bookshop.
A little band of misfits. I love a band of misfits.
It is delightful. I really enjoyed it.
I know there's another author, relatively local to Cincinnati, Margaret Rogerson.
Yes.
Who I absolutely adore. She wrote A Sorcery of Thorns, is one of my favorite YA
and
fantasy.
Vespertine
Yes,
is so cool.
good.
Oh,
so she's another YA local to Cincinnati author who I just can't recommend enough. I love her books. I love them. I have them all. So that's another fun recommendation.
She has a new one coming out sometime soon. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm
okay. Well, now I'm going to have to look it up. I didn't realize she had another one coming out. I'm excited. Is there anything else you've been reading, watching, or listening to?
Let's see. I don't watch a lot of TV. My teenagers would not be proud of me. I read a lot of fantasy. I do a little bit of nonfiction. So I most recently read What Fresh Hell Is This? A perimenopause, menopause, and other indignities in you.
Hey, important.
I think it's important, even if you're not in that part of your life, or you are never going to be in that part of life, to be able to support the people around you who are dealing with it.
And gain a little empathy.
And this particular book has just got a lot of dark humor in it. And if I'm going to read nonfiction, I definitely need it to
especially
have some
about
humor.
That particular topic.
Yes, we need to be able to laugh.
I love that. Love it. Well, Intisar, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We really appreciate you coming to talk to us.
Thank you. It's been so much fun.
And thank you for listening today. We hope you tune in next time for our next episode of Checked Out. Checked Checked Out is a podcast presented by the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library. It is produced by Paul Wellington, sound engineered by Steve France, hosted by Jessica Renato, and supported by the CHPL brand team, as well as the hundreds of library staff across Cincinnati and Hamilton County. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.